Alrighty, second time's the charm. Hello everyone and welcome back to the Brightworks, where today I've inadvertently spoiled the match for us as I forgot my audio recording software was not turned on. Sigh. Anyway, getting into this match today, we're going to be taking a look at another Bar Nation Wars series, a best of 3 series between the UK and Finland. Both of these teams bringing their A game today. The last Bar Nation Wars game I covered was between an A team and a B team, and I didn't realize it at the time of recording, and so failed to communicate that. During the cast. But this time, both teams bringing their absolute best of the best. So why don't we meet them? Representing the red team, coming in at 53 true skill to boot, it's going to be Jazz Cash, spawning in the northern side here of Industrial Revolution, our map for the day. Let me show you that real quick. Industrial Revolution version 2. It's a really cool one, difficult one for me to cast, just because of these pipes. But nonetheless, I will try my best, and we will hopefully have a really spectacular match. Jazz Cash going to be spawning as a Cortex commander, going into a bot lab here. Interesting start location. Not really a it's interesting because you have a lot of options, right? You can either come down from this area and go up into here. You can go back around and through the back line over in this area, or you can go down into the front, right? Although I think these two are probably the most common. Spawning across the map here, representing the red team. Sorry, the blue team. Just double checking over here on the right hand side. Indeed, all is in order. Representing the blue team, we do have Teddy, also spawning as a Cortex player in the very, very back line here. Giving out a couple of windmills already to Rebel Node. Oh, has gone into an air lab. Cheeky. All right, Rebel Node going into that air lab very early on. Also trying to get an air constructor out as quick as possible. Having a bit of a hard time with that, though. Yeah, energy supplies are down right now. Teddy, I mean, what is there to say? Very experienced player, very, very ahead of the game here with many, many, many silver bars to their name. And I mean, each and every one of those is well earned. This is a very experienced commander, and I'm sure that they're going to bring out an absolute A game. Now, they are on the front lines here, which is quite interesting. Industrial Revolution is an 8v8 map, so both of these teams have a lot of resources to work with, right? Each of these players is essentially pulling double duty. But it also means that you're going to have a way more metal to go with if you want to go into something like, for instance, vehicles, which seems to be the decision that Mitvit is going for here, deciding to go into that Cortex amphibious constructor here, the Muskrat. The Muskrat, going to be great for seizing all of these metal extractors underneath the waves over here. I think that's a great move. Trying to capture all those is oftentimes difficult to do as this player because you are kind of limited on options. You can either go into hovercraft, and then that's very expensive and not very efficient. You can go into amphibious constructors, which is the option that we're going for here, or of course you can move your commander down there, but then you lose a lot of build power back at home. I think that's usually what I prefer to do, go for a construction turret and then start moving the commander around to capture all these. It allows you to capture this land area very easily as well. But of course, it is one of the things that makes Bar so special is the variety of strategies, right? Anyway, we do have Rascals versus Rovers here, as it looks like High Gain is looking to get aggressive over here. There are 3 metal extractors that are still unclaimed here, and I think the blue team is really failing to jump on top of all the metal that they could be pulling back into their bank account as quickly as possible here. These Rovers are looking for a kill. I don't think they're going to find one, though. Maybe they could steal a metal extractor up north here. Shurikens have been pulled to try and shut down some of this. Rovers? Ooh, not quite gonna kill it. Yep, 13% on that bad boy, but not quite going to finish off that metal extractor. It's a bit of a bummer. Could have been a nice little pick for them to catch that metal extractor. Instead, they're gonna go scout up here, and they are going to find that this player is an air player. Interesting. So, because the commander has been moved out by a transport, these Rascals, or Rovers rather, actually have free gain up here. There is an LLT, but as long as they avoid that, they're gonna have a completely free reign over all of the metal extractors. Ooh, looks like Rovers, or well, vehicles in general, can't get up this hill right there. That's quite nice. A little bit of a run by over here as well by Jazz Cash. Sneaking a couple of grunts through. Things are slowly, well, quickly rather, starting to fall apart here for the blue team. Bunch of blitzes as well as grunts have pushed in here, and Nert Siege just doesn't have the forces to deal with it. There are backup forces from Teddy, but I mean, this is a lot of damage that's been done already. That being said, I mean, I guess there was no commander over here, so they didn't really overflow into 2 base. They basically just scratched up the outside of Nert C's base. Bunch of blitzes also trying to get an engagement here. Oh, that pounder taking a fabulous trade. Gonna shut down a whole lot of those blitzes right there. Commander working as a functionally mobile LLT. Going to shut down some of those grunts that were getting aggressive there, and I think all said and done, this will be more or less deflected. Not bad. Can we rebuild, though? At this point, the aggression has netted the red team complete control over the bottom part of the map right here. Rebel Node has moved his commander way up here, though. That's quite interesting. It's a very aggressive expansion, but certainly very valuable if he can hold on to that. So we're gonna have to see. Jazzcash has decided to go along this path right here, but it does leave Teddy with an open access pass to the back door here, and that's never something you want Teddy to have because he will be sure to harass it. There's, I mean, talk about clips that are going to be quoted out of context 10 years down the line. Anyways, the back door run over here from Teddy could do a tremendous amount of damage. Not only the 3 metal extractors or 4 metal extractors that he would get along the way, but also, I mean, that's right into the production heart of Jazzcash right here. And so you can imagine that a run by from Teddy's forces would be quite dangerous. Now, luckily for Jazzcash, Teddy is still rebuilding from that run by that happened over here, using the resbot to try and rebuild whatever is rebuildable and reclaim whatever else is there. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the only saving grace right now is the fact that we do see, even using the transporter right there to micro the commander, very nicely done. We do see that this run by has sort of stalled Teddy's production a little bit here. Construction turret here, helping rebuild with the base's infrastructure. Resbot trying to patch up whatever it can. All things are as they should be. Now this is a nice little advantage for the red team here. Holding on to these metal extractors in the middle, although 2 of them are unclaimed. That's a little bit unfortunate. Still though, holding on to these metal extractors in the middle, very, very powerful. The slowest race in the west. We have 2 amphibious constructors trying to outbuild each other on the southern lanes there. Very, it's a very slow contest. You know what? Jazzcash has been kind of cut off here. Yeah, the forces of Teddy have moved forward where the commander was displaced, and now Jazzcash is found with only 4 grunts. Almost, I want to say blitzes for some reason. 4 grunts to his name. Guarding the commander. He's going to start putting up desperation LOTs, but yeah, I mean, effectively completely cut off from his army, and at this point, Rebel Node has built up quite a substantial force of thugs right now, and they're going to start helping out with these grunts that were queued up here by Teddy. Both of them in conjunction are going to be more than enough force to completely control this northern section of the map, the northern middle high ground, the northern low ground maybe, because this is high, this is even higher. I guess high ground, middle ground, low ground, valley. There's a lot of tiers to this map. I'm not sure exactly how to call it. Anyways, this path right here, going to be well controlled by the blue team. And I think they're going to be happy for it because, yeah, it leads right back into the heart of the red, and this needs to be addressed. Like, we can't dilly-dally with the kind of address here. These thugs need to be dealt with, and it looks like the forces of Shaman are going to, or Shaman? Maybe it's Shaman. The forces of Shaman are going to be pulled here, a bunch of blitzes to try and take an engagement right here. Tricky to engage into a bunch of thugs like that, especially if they're split up and microed well. They can definitely do a whole lot of damage. I'd love to see some agitators up on this cliffside up here to try and fire down at the things down below. That would certainly be very annoying for Randy to have to deal with here. Highgain going to capture these metal extractors over here as well, and I think that's the right idea. Definitely want to grab as many metal extractors as possible if you want to hold on in this game. LOTs holding the line over here. See how they do against medium tanks. The answer is not very well. Several % off per blast there is not, you know, not anything to really gloat about. 1 medium tank will go down here, and the rest of them will break through. Now, there are a bunch of grunts to try and clean this up eventually, and I think they will. Slowly but assuredly, they will mop up those forces right there. Action all over the map. This is really quite something else. Amphibious Constructor continuing to try and build over here. Going to try and double dip a little bit. Unfortunate. Not exactly what you want to see. Randy in a lot of trouble right now as the medium tanks and the pounders and the agitators, all of it is bearing down on his force, and with the red player pulled out of position here because of the fact that he was dealing with this incursion of thugs over here, he had the blitzes pulled. It means that the forces on the front line are quite a bit weaker. Do we see a T2 transition, I wonder? Jazzcash's commander is still trapped up here, trying to build LOTs to find a way back, but now the thug army is marching in that direction. That's certainly enough thugs to kill this commander, but they obviously have to be microed properly. If you walk your thugs into the commander's range, you can just degun them down. Now the agitators are built, going to start firing away at these LOTs and whittling them down one by one. And here are the thugs. They will be microed properly. That's good to see. Going to quickly blast down Jazzcaster's commander alongside a grunt or two that were accompanying him. And I have a feeling it will not be long before this yellow commander takes a nice dirt nap. Down goes the commander. Oh, a lot of thugs went down in that too. I mean, that's a silver lining on top of a blood-covered plate. Losing that many thugs right there does hurt to the spiral potential of Rebel Node, but I'm sure they're all more than happy. They, being the blue team, are all more than happy to have that commander. that commander-shaped thorn in their side taken out of their backline. Now it means that the blue team has overwhelming control of this northern side of the map. The red team has overwhelming control of the middle side of the map. So it's going to be about who can see, or rather who can manage to leverage their advantage better. Right now, the red team looks like they have enough forces to really start laying down the heat. You can see those rocket pods firing away, but this is a very difficult line to break. I mean, we have so many units moving around right here, and those agitators not really as effective against units as they are against static defenses, especially when those units are moving. One of my favorite ways to queue my units in case I have to leave them is just to hit the repeat command, set a move command, and then set another move command slightly south of their position and backwards a little ways, just so they're constantly moving in and out of combat. Makes it look like you're microing a lot harder than you actually are. It's oftentimes that could scare off commanders that aren't paying super close attention. Oh, shurikens were pulled over here. Nicely done. Actually really like that. Yeah, those shurikens gonna help get a really nice trade over here. We do have a bunch of grunts as well to serve as a, well, as a little bit of vision, but also as a bit of a health pool, like a distraction base. There go the shuriken. Oh, trashers are out though to shoot down the shuriken. That's nice. Thug engagements oftentimes come down to the shape. And if not the shape, then it comes to who has more resbots. Right now, the defender's advantage does swing in the favor of Pro Randy. Oh, resbot a little bit microed right there, but still, reinforcing units are going to come out a whole lot quicker for the orange player than they are for the green player, and that's going to make a very satisfying hold right here. Microing two different armies, I might add, is Pro Randy. He's holding both the front lines and the back lines. I wouldn't mind seeing these units handed over here. I feel like delegating these units to another player might be a better option here to deal with the incursion of green forces all over the place here. There's so many thugs and so many agitators. Agitators are weird to micro with thugs because you need them in the front, otherwise they'll friendly fire the thugs, but you don't want them in the front, otherwise they'll take all the damage. It's a weird lineup, and I think the best thing to do is to just select them all and just spread them out in a line so that at the very least they're intermixed. Gives them decent survivability while also allowing them to fire away without hitting too many of their brethren. Looks like we're thinking about a little bit of a run by here on the northern side. There is a resbot that's going to be caught right here. A little bit of miss micro right there. A couple of Teddy's forces are going to intercept it, and I think the yellow and blue forces colliding over here are going to eventually balance out in Teddy's favor, as he does have the forward vehicle, or the forward bot lab rather. Pardon me. This engagement is exhausting the resources of Randy and Highgain here on the front lines. Yeah, the more attention is needed to defend from this aggression over here, the more we are seeing fall apart over here. Oh, and we do have a T2 transition. Looks like it's going to be Rebel Node going for that T2 transition, supported by the metal income of Teddy, who has donated tons and tons of metal up there to get a T2 lab up and running. Really nicely done. Yeah, those Sheldon are up on this hill, and they're going to start raining away on all the commanders and tanks and Sheldons, basically everything that's over here. Not Sheldons, what is it called? Shell shockers that are sitting down on the low grounds here. Oh, that is so annoying. Yeah, Randy and Highgain fighting so desperately for this positional advantage, only for it to be taken away by the high ground advantage. But I guess Obi-Wan Kenobi was not lying. The high ground advantage is real, and Randy and Highgain are forced to retreat off of here because there's not really any way for them to economically sustain themselves here when they're just taking tons and tons of fire from above. Man, that hurts. Yeah, that's a painful trade, right? Because you're really expecting those Sheldon to not do very much on the front line, but when they're up here, they can just fire away as much as they want, basically for free. Yeah, they really start to get their maximum value out, a near infinite value, if you will. Looks like forces did collide up here on the northern side, and Teddy pushed all that back very easily. Looks like a pretty much one-sided engagement right there. Teddy did manage to recuperate from those losses with a resbot as well, and so all that metal is going to be going back to the blue economy, and I do wonder, are we going up to T2? No, we're going into an air lab. Interesting. Teddy may be thinking about trying to end some of this with some bombing. I wouldn't mind it. Looks like two players have gone to air labs here, actually. Oh, Mitvid is going for some bombing as well. Huh. All right, maybe Randy is just making sure we have fighters to cover in case the front lines get shuriken here. A little bit of a run by over on this side does manage to overwhelm the defensive forces. There's a beamer over here, but it doesn't have enough power to keep full firing. Well, for a second there, it didn't anyways. Looks like now it's fine, but it is already blasted apart by all of these grunts who are going to swarm through the southern section of this map, devastating the economies that have been set up there by the red players. Of course, opening up the potential for the blue team to swoop in, eat up that metal, and claim those metal extractors. What a flip-flop. Yeah, that is, whoa, massive engagement over here as well. Looks like the majority of the green army has gone down due to these shurikens, paralyzing the ever-living hell out of all of them. That's going to be the vast majority of the green forces going down. However, the key component, the Sheldon, is still alive and kicking. And the Sheldon can do a lot of damage. Least of which to the thugs right here, but also to anything else, any of the medium tanks or anything else that are on the low grounds. Yeah, those thugs rather are going to be forced to retreat for their lives because those Sheldon are firing away. Not to mention, of course, that we could also see some of those devilish fiends start to pop up and show their ugly heads. We all know just how dangerous those fiends can be once they start to hit the front line and they're dealing with T1 units. They melt away pretty quick. Yep, Southern Island is completely shut down. The last remaining vestige of defense down here is a single beaver that is constructing some defenses over there for our red team leader, our red team player rather. Guess the color system was a little skewed on this one, a little messed up. That is a nice concave on those thugs, though. That is a really nice concave on those thugs. There goes the Shuriken, paralyzing everything that they can. Yep, that's a great jump right there, managing to jump on top of all those tanks. Fighters eventually swoop in here to save the day, but that was a huge engagement right there for those thugs. You can see just how many tanks lie in ruin from all those thug shots firing away at those paralyzed units. Very nicely done. We do see bulls coming out to the front line as well. I wonder if Jaguars would be a better option here, though. Yeah, I mean, you're dealing with a lot of T1 spam, and so the Jaguars tend to do a whole lot better against that. Little bombing run over here. Going to shut down some windmills here. Not hitting the juiciest windmill clusters, but still hitting a couple of them. Going to be quite painful to deal with. Ooh, energy converter pops right there. Does manage to do a little bit of damage. All right, not bad. The Sheldon have come down to the low ground, though. Their days of living in the high ground are over. We are switching over to Fiend production. Start up some sort of an assault force. I think that's right on time here, because as soon as those T2 vehicles start to come out to play, the Bulls and the Jaguars and all those, you're really going to start losing your T1 army very quickly, and you really want to have something of the T2 caliber in order to hold the line. Down go a whole lot of those units. In fact, every one of those units. Yep, and away they go. Resbot here, trying to do what it can, but it is blasted apart. Those Sheldon getting a great connection against these bulls right there. I just wonder if there's too many Sheldon already to do critical damage. One of those bulls is pretty low, and it will go down. It's a very heavy investment to lose. Shuriken coming in to paralyze another one of them. Randy distracting with his commander. He says, hey, look at me. Don't worry about that bull. Decides to go in there, try and save the bull. It will work for what it's worth, but I have a feeling that there's just too many Sheldon here to push back. The Fiends are now running down the ramp on the low ground. Looks like we did have a commander going down there. That was High Gains commander, falling to the forces of the purple player. Air Constructor here can eat up all these wreckages. It's actually quite nice. Something you don't think about all too often, but it is one option. Purple is still on T1 here. Nert C, that is. I'm wondering if we couldn't get a T2 constructor out. Oh, was that a spy bot? It looks like it was. Big spy bot connection right there. Did paralyze a whole bunch of Sheldons as well as a whole bunch of incoming Fiends, but the remaining reinforcements, there we go, will manage to kill Pro Randy's commander there, bringing down the major threat to this army, right? Not really the D-guns, not really the lasers, but just the fact that it's packed full of TNT and ready to explode. Another spy bot is out, and this always feels like a Hail Mary play, right? You're never really expecting the spy bot to get a massive connection, but when it does, it really can lay down the law. Unfortunately here, I don't think it's going to be quite enough. Yep, the medium tanks have already jumped on top of the T2 lab. No more spy bots will be coming out of that bad boy. The Fiends decide to jump forwards, and I think this is enough force to push back on the red team. The orange player is broken here. That's Pro Randy, and he is shut down. Jazzcash now going to be in a little bit of trouble as the forces overflow into his base. Likewise for High Gain, who is only the buffer before they get to Shamans. Mauser on the retreat makes them completely ineffective. They are forced to turn around and engage into this, even though they'd rather have something else in front of them. That being said, they're very powerful. They swing their heads around and they're able to dish out a tremendous amount of damage. Sometimes. Sometimes it's a little underwhelming. Shuriken do come in, though, to soften all this up and make it a much easier push right now. Gonna paralyze the constructors, too, because why not? Jumping on top of all the other Mauser, the red Mauser back here, and there's no way to deal with this. Again, I think Jaguar probably would have been the right play here. Maybe not even a ton of them, just a couple. 1, 2, maybe 3 Jaguar, just to shoot down the Shuriken, just to provide a little bit of AoE protection. But indeed, we do see the red player tap out, and I feel it won't be long before we see the rest of the UK team forced to bend to the Finnish assault. There they go. Tapping out of game number 1 in this best of 3 series. It's going to be the Finland players taking a point and putting it on the board. Let's jump into game number 2. Our second game of the day is going to be played today on Theta Crystals. Theta Crystals 1.0, that is. The last map was definitely an 8v8 map. This one I feel like is much more catered towards 4v4. Definitely designed with 4v4 in mind at the very least here. You can see that there's kind of 3 distinct lines. Well, maybe 2 distinct lines and then one very obvious backline player here that I would not be surprised to see as the air player. For the blue team, it's going to be Dankest. For the red team, it's going to be JazzCash. Both of its Cortex commanders, and I think that's to nobody's surprise that Shuriken is just too valuable to pass up in the early game here. Now, air also has a really important role on this map, and that's to capture these high ground metal extractor points. You can see sit up on top of these mountains. Very difficult to get to, but you are rewarded with quite a bit of metal if you manage to build a metal extractor up there. 2.4 for most of those. There's also some 3.0s here, one there. I think there's one down south here as well. Well, that one's on a low ground, but you get the idea. There's also 2 very interesting fighting paths here. As you can see on the northern side, there's this hillside that is sort of difficult to contest because once you have control over the top of it, you're looking pretty good. And so whosoever manages to capture the top of this hill, very, very valuable to as far as engagements go. However, there's not really any metal to fight over up on that hill. So what you really want to fight onto is this low ground right here. And that's oftentimes a bit more trickier to do than just capture the high ground. So it always makes for a pretty interesting battle. It's also interesting because we get to see whether they will choose to, both teams will choose to send 2 players down south here or 2 players up north and then the remaining player to the other side. 2 scout planes there, passing each other in the night. Looks like they are going to get a pretty much perfect scout here. I believe both teams, pretty much found out by the other air player here. Very nicely done, at the very least turning this from a blind knife fight in a dark alleyway to a, well, just a regular knife fight in a well-lit alleyway, I suppose. Teddy coming under fire from a rascal here. Oh, he will not get it. Teddy repairs the metal extractor to save it. Very nice, very high-level micro right there. Seems simple, but I certainly would have let that metal extractor die on accident. It's one of those little things that you get good at figuring out how to solve the crises very efficiently, but you end up, in a little bit of trouble sometimes. Fighters are already out on the field, and these fighters are definitely looking to find a commander that is picked up by a transport and moved around to capture these metal extractors. Both teams aware of just how valuable those metal extractors are and know to try and deny that. It's a very easy way to kill a commander is just to send 2 fighters, shoot down the transport, and yeah, you're going to be in a really good position here. Bunch of rovers push through. I really would have liked to see these going in towards the air player's base. I really feel like that would have been a much more viable option as far as harassment goes. Still, though, going to shoot down a single metal extractor. Oh, tried to self-D there, but didn't quite have the timing right. But yeah, I think that definitely could be quite valuable here. Oh, Teddy's commander. Oh, the fighters were going towards it. The fighters did spy the transport, but they didn't manage to shoot down Teddy in time. Kind of putting Teddy in an awkward position here because he's now stranded up here on the high ground. Gonna need another transport pretty quickly. There it is. Dankest firing one up immediately here. I'm sure these players were all playing in a Discord or something like that in order to have perfect communication. Because, yep, there we can see. Transport shared over to Teddy almost immediately. 8v8 games, very difficult to coordinate in Discords. They can oftentimes be quite troublesome. Uh-oh. High gain is in the transport. Fighters are moving over. Oh, no. Oh, just a second away from landing right there, but the transport is shot down. The commander explodes, and that is a huge hit to the red player's base right there. Those fighters inadvertently causing a massive amount of damage to Shaman, who is now down 2 metal extractors and all of those wind turbines that were over here. Yikes. That hurts a lot. The red team definitely needs to share some wind production to the red player, otherwise he's going to be in a really huge deficit for quite some time. Shaman trying to build right now, but doesn't have the metal extractors for it. This is such a bummer right now. Wow, that was a huge connection. Now, you can't eat up the commander, right? You can eat up the commander and eat that juicy 1,250 metal. Try and fold it back into your economy and make use of it. Kind of a silver lining to an otherwise unfortunate event is the fact that you do get that commander wreckage to enjoy. But, of course, it also puts your team 1 commander closer to losing the match. Oftentimes, the last commander doesn't become very relevant in these games because usually it's the crumbling of one side and then that just triggers a downward spiral for these teams. But certainly, it does make things a little bit tenuous, especially on the front lines where D-guns can be very valuable. Now, the red team is going to be going up against the blue here on the northern side with 2 commanders, both teams acknowledging the other and sending 2 commanders that way. I think that's probably standard, more or less. That's probably what we most often see. A little bit of an engagement down south here as Teddy has started to eat up some of those wreckages and put down some LLTs, basically trying to make sure that he can deflect any attacks that are sent his way. Does have the missile truck here, which is quite nice as far as vision goes. It allows you to really see out into the distance there and anticipate how your opponent is going to interact, how they're going to engage, what the shape of their engagement is going to be, and it allows you to take a really nice trade. Highgain is fording up here on the northern side a little bit more than I think I'd like. Putting down these LLTs and parking all of his units over here, I really think these blitzes need to get some sort of a trade against these grunts. Grunts can technically trade against blitzes, but it's very difficult to do. You have to keep them at just the right angle. You have to have a good engagement. A lot of things have to go right, in other words, in order to get a really, really nice trade as for grunts against blitzes. But those shurikens, definitely making sure that we're not getting that kind of a trade today. All of those grunts going down for free, essentially cutting Rebel Node's army in half, maybe by a third. Probably more accurate there. Oh, bombers. Where are they at? Oh, there they are. Nice little bombing runs here, shutting down all the power production here for Jazz Cash, shutting down some of the power production here for Highgain, although not as much. And then also dropping another load right over here on Shaman. Shaman's base scuffed up here, although it's actually Jazz Cash's solar panels, but a lot of damage right now being done by these bombers. Definitely very efficient. Yeah, I would say these have definitely gotten their value out here. Are we thinking about more bombers, I wonder? It was such a successful bombing run that I wonder if that was kind of the idea here. A couple of blitzes do break through from the northern high ground. I think they came all the way around, swept through this area, and did kill quite a few metal extractors right there of the red teams. Now they're going to be moving in here, and they're going to engage with a medium tank, but I think they're, more importantly, going to take down another metal extractor and get into the base of the orange player. This is quite dangerous. Another metal extractor will go down in the base. Another one over here. Very nicely done, shutting down a lot of that eco, and that's especially damaging against a vehicle player. Vehicle players rely heavily on those metal extractors being up and running, and right now, kicking an injured dog while it's down, they're going to jump on top of Shaman's base, and that is going to be all she wrote here for the red player. Yeah, I mean, there's just no more wind production, right? And so without our teammates building a whole bunch of wind power, also not to mention the energy collapsing here for Jazz Cash as well, means that there's effectively no way for the red team to build enough units. They just don't have the energy right now. You can see the energy deficit is massive. They're down about 300 or so energy production per second here over the blue team. Not to mention the tremendous metal advantage here. 74 versus about 40 metal. That's definitely to the advantage of the red team, and or to the blue team rather, the Swedish team. Finnish team, sorry, I caught myself. I was about to cast a Finland game, or a Sweden game. Man, I'm getting all confused now, so it's on my mind. Anyways. Yeah, you can see that advantage growing and growing and growing over time here. It's because of all these metal extractors that went down, so that is just an extra 40 or so metal that is not going into the economy of the red team, and you can see that over 2 or 3 minutes, that adds up real quickly. And eventually, there's just going to be too many forces here in blue in order to combat the forces of red. Thug push over here. Thugs mixed in with grunts here. Nicely done pulling the grunts back just before the Janus can connect with them. Janus does pretty good against thugs, but it's nowhere near as impressive as when it connects with a whole bunch of grunts. And I think that's the idea here. Bait out the Janus shots with the thugs and then use the grunts to swarm the Janus before they have a chance to reload. A little breakaway of grunts over here. Do manage to kill 2 metal extractors and maybe a third. Yep, they'll get the 3rd metal extractor. One of them eaten alive. Oh, the second one's going to get eaten alive too. Wonderful. Consume the flesh of thy enemy. Gain their power. Well, that was a lot of missile trucks and Januses getting jumped on there. Not exactly the ideal composition to go up against medium tanks. They're excellent for dealing with them, but you definitely need a little bit of HP in front, right? You need some sort of damage soaker. Medium tanks, or I mean, a commander works too, I suppose. Basically anything that acts as a buffer, so that those Januses and those Whistlers and all those other units can fire away without having to worry for their lives. Randy in a lot of trouble right now. 14% on that commander. Those Januses are only going to take 1 or 2 good connections to bring down that commander, and I think that's exactly what Teddy is smelling right now. Big old fighter collision right over here. It is going to end with a victory for the forces of the purple player Dankist, who's going to retreat with the remaining fighters here, keeping the airspace clear and keeping the air player down. With how much power went down over there, makes sense that the aerial superiority has now fallen into the favor of the blue team. Oh, there goes Janice's connecting wherever they can. So much damage. Oh, a lot of friendly fire right there, though. It's a trade-off, right? In one hand, they're excellent for how much damage they can do, but also they can accidentally do a lot of damage back to your own forces. Speaking of damage, though, Randy's commander, 14% left on that bad boy. 5%, 3%. Just 140-ish health remaining on that orange commander here. Looking really, really thin in the health pool. It's a shallow pool, the health pool. Little Thug engagement over here. Sounds like a rapper name, Little Thug. I think it is a rapper. Anyway, Thug engagement over here. We do have the res bots to patch all these bad boys back up to full health, and I think that's great. Of course, they can also resurrect any of these fallen brethren, and that's going to be really nice here. It's frustrating to play against a really good player because they'll use their res bots for so much more than just reclaiming metal on the front lines. I mean, they use them to tremendous effect to keep this army up and running, and it doesn't seem like a lot, but it's 1 or 2 or 3 more rockets per Thug that they can manage to take. And when you're going up against that with a limited number of forces, it just feels like you're firing on a titanium wall that is just untouchable. It really is a really unfortunate scenario to be in, and it makes for a very, very concerning engagement. Yep, Resbot's patching up whatever they can. Gonna fix up these LOTs that were originally belonging to Shaman. Now converted to the forces of, the forces of Green, Rebel Node here. Southern side is collapsing. Ooh, commander does go down right on time, right as I look over here. My commander going down senses were tingling. They're not often on, but sometimes they're correct. Randy's commander does go down to the forces of Teddy, and I do believe that's going to open up the pathway for Teddy to sweep through this area, swarming the red team, and I just don't think there's enough units here to stop the flow of units. Flow of blue, the blue tide. I think the commander should probably reclaim some of these wreckages here, although that being said, Teddy isn't really hurting for metal. Mostly just hurting for build power, actually, and indeed, that's what he's going for right now. Gonna start pumping out units en masse. It looks like blitzes are on the queue here. We have 8 blitzes and 4 tanks and 2 Janices and a constructor, all sorts of different things, all queued up right now to make sure that the blue army continues to grow while the orange army continues to fall. And indeed, that's exactly what we see as the production center does go down, and that is going to be all she wrote on the southern side for the red team. Air player, of course, doesn't really have a great way to contest this, was relying entirely on the defense of his teammate, and with that teammate going down here, a little bit of friendly fire. Not going to be a lot to stop these forces from jumping into the base of Jazzcash, and indeed, that commander is in a whole lot of trouble. Windmills going down once again, and you can see just how devastating those early bombing runs can be. I mean, all in all, it was only about 6 or 12, maybe 12 wind turbines going down, but it was the entire energy production for the red team, and it meant that they essentially couldn't manage to come back into this game. Very nicely done for our blue team, managing to put 2 points on the board and winning them this best of 3 series. Let me know how you feel about these down below. I always love to hear from you guys, get some feedback from you lovely folks. Let me know if you're interested in more Beyond All Reason Nation Wars. I'm super happy to cover them. I think we get to see some really cool games. Anyways, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will see you in the very next video. Peace out, folks.